my name is Myriam Paperman. I am a clinical psychologist working with Etelmed, a company that offers psychological assistance within international organizations and to individuals. If you're watching this video, you most likely have access to a 24/7 hotline or e-consultations if you feel the need to. Today, we're going to be talking about what it's like, how to be a manager in these conditions, or working for the human resource department or the medical staff of an organization, where you might be first-hand responders to workers that are struggling in the confinement period. So some of the questions that were identified as questions, most frequently asked questions, would be how to manage at a distance, how to identify and respond to workers struggling emotionally while teleworking, what psychological reactions are to be expected, and how to upkeep the motivation of your team, how to communicate, what are the efficient communication styles during a crisis. Those are all really good questions that we're going to try to answer. So first, I'm going to start with the expected psychosocial reactions. Depending on what country you're in, you're most likely been in confinement for a few weeks, or just starting confinement, or will start confinement. And it is important to know that it is normal to expect difficulty adjusting to the new working conditions, specifically since they were most likely not chosen by members of your team. The motivations can be challenged, the productivity, because people could be worried about their family, worried about themselves, or struggling to adjust working from home. And sometimes even like feeling low and disconnected from work. Maybe work is going to lose a little bit of its meaning in the adjustment periods. All those things are important to expect. And as managers or human resource department, you're going to be the ones to have to potentially identify it. So while most responsibilities are going to be the same as in the office, you're going to still have to continue to supervise or putting in place solutions, offering your team ways to go through situations, identifying strengths and weaknesses, finding areas to improve. The challenge will be mostly how to do so at a distance, how to do it from home when we don't have the people in front of us, and how to keep the team motivated. Being aware of the changes that the situation implies and adjusting to the daily demands is going to be the first step. So in terms of identifying workers struggling, look out for team members that aren't responsive. Maybe they're not responding to their phones or to the email, or they're missing meetings that we can do at a distance, or you're noticing that they're not producing the work they usually do, or maybe they're present with you, but they're just constantly commenting in loops of negative comments. Those are small signs that maybe something's going on. Maybe they'll be a little bit irritated or hostile, avoiding tasks, or not necessarily being coherent one day to the next. These are small signs to look out for. If someone is like that at the office, maybe that is not a sign, but you'd be looking for a change in the person. And then once you identify that, how to address that can be challenging. When possible, if you can have that communication with the worker, talk about it, suggest accommodations when you can. You might not all be in a position where you could, but if you can, if you have a team that can carry the work, maybe try to find how can the team support a worker. And also use the resources you typically have in place in your company, whether that be, if you're the manager, whether that be like introducing, maybe you can go talk to HR about this as you would usually, or third party, as in, let's say us, we are a third party, things that you already have in place that can help the workers. And the most important thing is when you're going to try discussing them to find solutions is to show compassion and show that you understand, you're aware of what's going on, you understand, while still having that pressure of this is work, and sometimes work has demands. But if you can redirect to supportive resources and stay non-judgmental, then you can potentially really help the worker. So that will, of course, require you to adapt your communication. When I say show compassion, how to show compassion, for example, that would be to listen. It sounds like a simple thing to do, but very important when people are struggling or are caught up in emotions is to just listen and be able to take in what the other person is saying. In terms of what to answer back. You might not always have the solution, and that's okay. Or you may need time to think of a solution, and that's okay. But at least let them know. Be clear and transparent in what you have to say. Reassure when possible. State the expectations. Find ways that are very clear for everyone to measure productivity. There's something to have in mind when working at a distance is that there's what we psychologists call the imaginary. In in every conversation, there is what is said and what is not said. It is important that what is said is clear and transparent to reduce the idea that we might have in our minds of what is not said. So, as a manager, for example, if you've adjusted your expectations, you have to communicate that to the team so that they know and they're not caught in this like, am I doing something right or am I doing something wrong? You can actually clear a lot of that tension by just communicating. A lot of people are worried about losing their jobs, and maybe you don't know what's the future for your company. Maybe you don't know. You don't have to have the answer, but acknowledge that this is a concern and trying to work through it with the team is what's going to be really important. And of course, check in with the people that you feel that are falling behind. Reach out to them, ask them if they're okay, and offering that third party or the HR if you feel like they're not okay. Keeping a schedule of times and meetings is going to be very important, just like you would at the office. If you have like regular meeting or like a weekly point with someone, to still do it even though it is at a distance. So you keep that link and you keep track of where you're at and what you need to do. Remember to remain sensitive to the workers from home and stick to the work hours. So as a manager, for example, do not reach out to your staff outside work hours that you set with your team. If someone reached out to you letting you know that 9 to 5 was really hard from home and they prefer doing, let's say, 10 to 6, try to see how you can fit in that so as to not overwhelm your team with information outside work hours, because they probably need that time to be functional at home so that they can be available for work. It all comes together. In terms of keeping the motivation, maybe challenging at a distance, but do what you would usually do in terms of setting clear goals, create fun work challenge. Sometimes in companies we do team building, so maybe do team building at a distance. Remind the team of of why they're working together. What are they working towards? That's very important. Positively reinforce and foster co-working communication and exchange. It's going to be important to foster a feeling of belonging and working together through these times so that we stay a team. Acknowledge and recognize the work that is done. Important pitfall to be aware of is we need to feel recognized for the work that we do. We need to be thanked. We need to be, even though as managers or HR, we're not parents, but it is important to reinforce, and that will directly play into the motivation of the workers. Most important, keep to the rules of working from home. You also actually might need to be informed about how to juggle between personal life and work life from home. So apply those rules to yourself. Those rules are going to help you keep the boundaries and stay available to your team. There's being available emotionally, and there's being available physically at a distance. So you could be available during work hours, but if you're too preoccupied in your head, you're not going to be available emotionally to your team. And you need to be available emotionally, not as their psychologist, but just to like adapt your communication or offer resources for them. So apply the rules to yourself of working from home, set work times and keep to them so that you can take care of yourself and be fully available. And of course, reach out to a coworker or to higher up if you're feeling overwhelmed, because you also actually might need some support. That's it for today. I hope that answered some of the questions. We will try to answer more questions that you may have. Thank you for listening. And remember, there is a hotline in case you need any additional help.